You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darrow O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are live here on Phoenix 92.5 FM. It is Tuesday, the 15th day of March, 2 days before St. Patrick's Day. Welcome to the show. My name is Darrow O'Connor. This is the Wrestling Rewind, show 92. Can you believe that, Martin? 92.
I believe it at this stage, Darrow.
Well, with all that being said, you heard him, the reigning, defending, undefeated 1-0, Mr. Martin Harty. How are things, Martin?
It is. Well, the only thing is that I've despite 2 years of dodging it, I finally caught the COVID.
Yeah, got us all. It got us all.
Punk has 2 weeks off anyway before he has to answer my challenge.
We'll let him away with these 2 weeks while you're recovering.
Yeah, so that's lucky for. And the worst thing is, I couldn't have got COVID on a worst week. St. Patrick's Day, and then the day after St. Patrick's Day is my birthday. So that's it out now for the 3rd year in a row. Or 4th year in a row, is it?
That sucks, dude. No,
how many years is this one going?
This will be the 3rd one for you. We missed 2 so far. But no, I got it there like a couple of weeks ago. And yeah, no, it's not fun. But look, if it's any consolation, it's out of the way now. It seems like everybody who didn't get it the first time around has it now. So speedy recovery, dude. Speedy recovery.
Thanks very much. Yeah, look, it's grand. It's not too bad.
And send them your love, ladies and gentlemen. Slobber Knicker, isn't that on Twitter? So send Martin your love. He would appreciate it. Of course, we have a lot to get through this week. Some sad news just to kick things off. We're also going to be talking about AEW Revolution. That's going to be like a big part of the show. And also 2K 22, which I do have a lot to talk about, actually more to talk about than I thought I would. So we'll get into that as well.
And a big debut.
Yes, well, yeah, one that nobody expected, but it's kind of funny. It all kind of ties together when we get there. We're also we will be back to our timeline soon on WCW, but you know, obviously things are quite busy. For people listening to us on live, you know, leave your comments in the chat. We have the chat here open in front of us, so we'll be able to kind of see them. And if you're listening to us on Phoenix FM as well, this is the most up-to-date show I think we've ever done on Phoenix FM because we're recording like the day before, which is weird.
It's mad, yeah.
Yeah, we usually were live on Friday night.
And hopefully by the time this goes out on Phoenix, we'll have better news about Scott Hall. Apparently he was taken off life support about 4 or 5 hours ago.
Yeah.
But he's still ticking away, sort of under his own strength. So
well, look, so
who knows?
So for people looking on the screen here, we have the story from GameSpot.com, and it is kind of being reported all across major wrestling websites, and Twitter's full blown. You know, I think we might have jumped the gun a little bit with R.I.P. Scott Hall in the comment of our show, but like there is the belief. So we'll see what's going on. But basically, the story does come from GameSpot.com. Kevin Nash pays tribute to Scott Hall as he'll soon be taken off life support again. This is an active story. There's a lot of movement in it as well. Legendary wrestler and WWE Hall of Fame Scott Hall was recently put on life support after complications with hip surgery. Suffered 3 heart attacks. Hall's former tag team partner, lifelong friend Scott Hall, confirmed that Hall's family will take him off life support as soon as they get their affairs in order. Scott's on life support. Once his family is in place, they'll discontinue life support. Nash post on Instagram. I'm gonna lose the one person on this planet I spent more of my life with than anyone else. My heart is broken. I'm so effing sad. I love Scott with all my heart, and I'm preparing for my life without him in the present. So look, this has been active all day. Again, it is a very sad situation, and we don't know. Like, the belief was that he was, he didn't have long left, and that's particularly when we went live.
Yeah, that the life support was sort of the only thing
keeping him alive. Yeah, and now it seems to be that he is kind of breathing on his own again. So we don't know. Obviously, if the story breaks or if there is some update during the show, we will update you guys. But for the time being, this is where we are as we're recording. It's people seem to be bracing themselves.
It'd be a hell of a kick out, wouldn't it? From Razor just at the last minute.
Oh man, it really would be, wouldn't it?
To keep on ticking.
Like to be fair, look, it surprised me a great deal. I wasn't expecting this. Scott Hall, he's one of those guys where you when you hear some bad news, it's just upsetting. It was kind of like when Jake the Snake Roberts was going through similar things, but he's looked okay in recent years. He's been doing a lot more, particularly with the WWE. When he was in TNA, it was really bad with the band. I remember that was a very, very dark period for him specifically. But man, I don't know. Like you've had some run-ins with Scott Hall. You've had the opportunity to drive him around Belfast and everything. So
around Cork.
Sorry.
Yeah. He came down. He did a sort of a Q&A show for us down in Cork, and I picked him up at the airport and took him out to the venue, and then out for something to eat after and back to his hotel. And he was great. He was like, I was a sort of a nobody trainee,
right,
just there because I think I was the only one who had a car,
right.
But he was more than happy to let me pick his brain and sort of offering different bits of advice about getting started, and happy to tell you all the stories about different legends in and out of the ring. And the only thing is he wasn't too complimentary about breath, but I just sort of bit my tongue and said nothing.
Well, look, the main thing is if you're, he's one of those guys that no matter when you watch wrestling, you know who Scott Hall is, you know who Razor Ramon is. You've had that kind of exposure to him, either watching him through the Monday Night Wars. Obviously, we were looking at their intro, and it's like he's all over it, and I didn't realize he was all over it until we were kind of watching it for this, and he is one of those massive names in the industry, and bona fide Hall of Famer. I think a Hall of Famer twice, right, with the NWO and by himself, and if he's not by himself, he'll probably go in after this.
He never won did he ever win the world title in WCW?
He didn't. He never won any world title.
He never won it neither.
Yeah, which is surprising. But then again, the reason why he didn't win it was because one, Nash was booking it, and when Nash wasn't booking it, Hogan was bullying everybody to book it. Yeah. So it's one of those things where you're like, the thing about Scott Hall is he always seemed to be, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Where he was with the people who were the big draws.
Even when he was winning, like he won the sort of infamous ladder match with Shawn Michaels, but it's Michaels who sort of came out of that.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Like even like throughout his whole career, again, and you took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say, Shawn Michaels benefited from that way more than Razor Ramon. And then he went over to WCW, where you think he would have had a run of it, and he did. He was in the biggest stable of all time. I know WWE likes to say it's DX, but it's not DX.
And not in it like bloody 100 people were in it by the end. Like he was
the founding member.
Yeah, the other half of the foundation of that. Even before, Hogan came in, like sort of the outsiders were the foundation of that.
Absolutely, and I think people need to kind of remember that. And one thing that we've noticed in the show, and we haven't gone back, we will go back to 1996 probably. I think that's going to be our next jump, where we go back to 1996. We can see the origin at the NWO, but we've seen it in 2000s in WCW, where he's still up there. He's at the top of the card. He's having matches with Goldberg. He's in active feuds beside Kevin Nash, but never actually kind of coming out of his shadow as such. He was just kind of
even later on, like post the invasion and everything. It was Hall that Austin wanted to work with,
which was surprising. Like I remember going like as a kid. Like how old was I in 2002? Like 16, 15, around that. And no, I was younger. I was like 13. I was younger. I was still in school, primary school. Just going into secondary school, and I remember thinking, that's not what I want. I remember thinking Scott Hall was a weird choice for Austin. I think
I think there was issues with Hogan, wasn't there?
There was issues with Hogan, and Nash wasn't a good fit. But I think everybody thought that Hogan and Austin was the match. And to this day, I do think that probably would have been a better match, because the match that was at WrestleMania 18, was it? It was WrestleMania 18.
Yeah,
was not good.
It wasn't. I mean, Hall wasn't in a particularly great spot at that time.
Like, but mentally, obviously, in his demons as well.
Yeah, but I thought I thought he still managed it. I think what sort of pulls it out of the bag is he did take one of the best stunners ever.
He did.
So when you think back to that match, you don't really think about the kind of sort of awkward plodding moments of it. You just think about that awesome bump off the stunner, and
yes,
in your own mind, it's probably one of those matches that it's probably better not to go back and watch.
Yeah, and that's it. It's one of those, when you are thinking about it as a fan, there's those big moments, and it did have that WrestleMania moment. I think from that WrestleMania, it was Hogan and Rock, obviously the double turn, and then there's the stunner. Kevin Nash, I believe, was involved in a match as well. I don't remember who with. Obviously, it wasn't that important.
I cannot remember either. That's mad.
If you're in the chat, guys, let us know. I just genuinely can't remember. But yeah, Scott Hall was there, and I think that was the highest point that he had. I think the plane ride from hell was a couple of months after that, and he was obviously let go around that time. Yeah. And that was it. And Scott Hall was gone until he would show up in Impact randomly a couple of years later with Kevin Nash, and they would do, discount NWO, which was not good. And it's weird because Scott Hall didn't even win the title there, which he didn't even win any. I think he won the tag belts. I could be wrong, but I think he won the tag belts. I don't think he won anything else. But
I think he was his character was kind of so effortlessly like laid back and cool. He probably didn't need like a world title. I don't even know if it would have suited his character.
Well, that's it. Now he does have a lot of runs winning US belts and intercontinental belts, and at that level, and then also multiple tag runs, something like 15 tag runs. It is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But then again, it's just like, he was happy enough to just be there.
Oh, that's what he told. I've heard him,
and that was kind of it.
Say this before, and it's actually one of the things he told me. He said as long as he's getting paid, he'll go out and he'll take the L every single day. Man, as long as
that's what I always got for him. He seems like he's just the guy who's like, right, you're gonna pay me, cool. And that's kind of it, and it's. But the people he worked with, as I said, he touched so many lives and so many generations by kind of doing that. Like, I would say Scott Hall, while he's obviously not more influential than Hulk Hogan, because Hulk Hogan is Hulk Hogan, but I mean, from a work rate standpoint and from being influential, like if you take the NWO, the three guys who started it, Hogan, Nash, and Hall. Hogan is obviously more influential because he put himself there, right? Nash is there because he was, more open to book things, and it was a perfect no, but he was still, still try different things, and particularly in TNA as well, he actually did some really, really cool stuff as far as getting some of the younger talent over. Scott Hall just worked with people and put people over. So I mean,
and a couple of his other contributions, kind of outside the ring, like him and Nash had a big effect on the business.
Yes.
When they made that jump to WCW, and they I know Hogan already had it, but they kind of normalized the idea of wrestlers getting sort of guaranteed money in their contracts. And changed the business a lot that way. And then the other thing that I would note about him was when he was in sort of the absolute depths of addiction, like he was so crippled by it. I know if you've seen any of the documentaries with DDP and that.
I have.
He was so crippled by it, like it didn't look like something that anybody could ever overcome.
No.
And the fact that he did, I would assume, gave a lot of inspiration, a lot of hope to other people who'd find themselves, maybe in a situation that they thought was kind of hopeless.
Yeah. No, it's, whatever happens again, folks, when we're recording this or when we are live, we don't know. It's still kind of touch and go. He is off life support, but either way, he'll be remembered as one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Obviously, Raw's tonight, so if the worst was to happen, they probably would. They probably are preparing something right now.
Well, you'd hope either way that there's something and let's hope he does pull through. But you'd hope even at that there'd be a message of support or
some kind of
something like that.
Exactly. Like, look, it's hard to see people who you watched, particularly in like there was a time, particularly in the wrestling media, where wrestlers were dying a lot at frighteningly young ages, and this is the first wrestling that we've had in some time that has happened, and it's sad, but I mean, like, it's one of those things where you're like, it's never easy, it's never easy to see this, it's never easy to kind of even talk about this, particularly when you're a wrestling fan. But if nothing else, he's gonna go out as the bad guy. He's always gonna be Scott Hall, and that's great, man. Like, as I said, if he's not in the Hall of Fame for himself, he has to go back in for himself, and maybe that's why this is happening now. What this feels like? This feels, sorry for interrupting you, man. This feels like the Ultimate Warrior. It feels like when the Ultimate Warrior died, he was in obscurity for so long, came back, and then all of a sudden dropped dead, which was weird. And that's what this kind of feels like with Scott Hall, where he was in obscurity for a while, brought himself back, and now he is very much in people's minds. And I think maybe that's what he wanted. Yeah. So, and like you say, he's
like I get the NWO thing, but you're right. He on his own merit 100% deserves to be in the Hall of Fame as Razor Ramon.
Exactly, and that's it. Like, people forget that he wasn't always Scott Hall. He was the bad guy, Razor Ramon. And it's weird.
See, I think I'm that generation. You still do. My first thought is still Razor Ramon.
Yeah. Well, see, I always loved the NWO, as you know, like. But man, it's upsetting. It's one of those things that we would be remiss to cover it. Obviously, it's a bit of a downer to start the show with it, but if there are updates, we will let you guys know, and we'd love to know what you guys think. Obviously, we can be reached _the_rewind on Twitter, as well, if you want to kind of get your thoughts chimed in on that. But look, we're gonna shift gears here, because we do have to talk about AEW Revolution. But before we do, I have actually managed to get a hold of 2K22. So, and it's, of course, thank you to 2K who supplied a code, and I'm going to be doing a longer review of it as well for the channel, so subscribe if you want to see that. Martin, have you looked into 2K22 at all?
I've so it doesn't appear to be coming out in the Switch, so it doesn't look like I'm going to get to play it. But I mean, just obviously the intrigue after the disaster of 2K20. I've been following like online reviews and YouTube clips and that, and broadly people seem a lot happier with it.
Yeah.
Although, if there's one thing I've noticed, it's that in a lot of the footage, people playing it online and that, a lot of these guys don't wrestle for them anymore.
But not okay. So the elephant in the room, I suppose, is it better than 2K20? Yes. Is it as good as two?
I mean, that'd be an absolute disaster if it wasn't. Like,
Well, I mean, like, is it as good as 2K19? No, not by a country mile. But it's not for the reasons that people would think. It's basically a talent drought. Like, the GM mode is awesome, right? But I won it because I had 4 Undertakers on my roster. And that's how I won it. I just had the
two
Undertaker
you get away
wrestle.
with, because there was 2 at one stage.
There was, but I just had the Undertaker in every key spot, and it's not as good as, like, you don't have as much control as you'd have in previous iterations of 2K. But
There's himself.
yeah, there they are. Yeah,
There's Scott.
as I said, man, like, he's everywhere. But yeah, I'm just gonna have that on the screen there. So look, as I said to you, it's one of those things where you're playing it and you're like, okay, this is great, but there's also just things missing, particularly with the GM. Like, you played the GM mode from 2006, haven't you? Or do you remember it?
No, the only 2K game I ever played was
No, not 2K. SmackDown versus Raw 2006.
Oh no, I was very much on the Nintendo side of things.
Ah, I see. Well, look, what I actually play, and I mean still do to this day, play the 2006 on the PSP, on the Vita, right? Because I just love the GM mode, and the GM mode is one of the coolest things, and a lot of people do. And there's a way to do it, and all they had to do was just do that again. You don't have to do anything else, but instead they have sexied it up a little bit, where it's not too complicated, but it's very hollow. So the 2000, and I'm going to do this in the review in a longer kind of long form kind of thing, because I really do want to kind of explain this for people. I'm going to try to sum it up real quick here. So in 2006, you would play it, and you could actually organize the entire roster. You could have your champions, your world, mid-card, tag, and women's. And then you could actually have your feuds. And pen and paper, you could sit there. And the way to play it is pen and paper, sit there, track out your feuds, and then book it that way. And it's great, right? It's a very engaging way to actually do this. And you don't need to play the matches if you don't want to. And obviously on a PSP you wouldn't, because it runs terribly if you start playing matches on it. So, when I went in with this, obviously they were talking about the GM mode, and people are excited, and it is there, but you can only book your world champion. And there's no tag.
Oh.
There's no IC, there's no women's. And there are certain things like cards, so, you can play it to undercut your rivals' promotions, to not let them play their champions, etc. So it's more like a card game element as well, which is a cool feature. But
hasn't this been an issue though with wrestling games for 20 years, where fans of the games have been saying, just give us an updated version of No Mercy, or just give us an updated version of SmackDown versus Raw, and they keep reinventing the goddamn wheel over and over again. And every year people say, just give us a modern version of the thing we bloody like. And every year they refuse to do it. Well,
see, I think they actually tried this time around. The thing about it, if you actually look at the gameplay footage, look, it's a lot better than it was last year. The hair feature's still a bit weird. It's not as bad as it was, but they're still trying to build this game from the ground up, because obviously it was developed by Ukes beforehand, and then Ukes were like, we don't want to do wrestling games anymore, or we don't want to do WWE games anymore, so we're leaving. And they're like, right, we'll build our own. And they're trying to build their own and that. So they look better than they did, but if you can have a look at the footage here, it kind of looks a bit it looks great in some ways, and then kind of doesn't. Now, there are some cool elements in it as well, where you can wrestle in the Thunderdome and all the actual crowd is replaced by screens, and that's actually badass.
Did I read a thing about it that says there's a mode in it where you're playing a certain characters, and then what'll happen is if you do a certain move, it'll cut to the actual real life footage of that move happening?
Yeah, so there's the Rey Mysterio showcase mode, and I think I haven't actually played that yet, but because I hate Rey Mysterio. But I will, as I said, I don't want. That's why I'm not doing a full in-depth one yet. But I will play it, and apparently, like, it's like the showcase modes in general, where they go through their best career moments and stuff like that. But as far as I wanted to get the gameplay down, I wanted to kind of get, if stuff was going to fix. I'm playing through the My Rise mode, which is the career mode, and it's fine. Like, I have to say, I really liked I really like 2K20, right, for the story mode. That was the wildest thing ever. It was the wildest, most ridiculous storyline ever. And you know what? I have to hand it to them, because they're like, yeah, we're just going to go for it. And it's omnipresent, man. Like, they had empty arena matches, Undertaker doing cinematic things, loads of The Fiend. But you know what's weird, right? So obviously, the biggest flaw here, and I am conscious of the time, so I'm going to kind of wrap this up. But the biggest, weirdest outlier of this is Bray Wyatt isn't in it. But all of
he's not in it.
He's not in it. No.
That's interesting, because surely they own the character. Like,
they do. All of his stuff is in it. You can make him. Like, literally, his entire entrance is there. All the Firefly Funhouse stuff is there. All of the clothes he wears is there. Everything is there. And it's the same with everyone they released. The problem with this is, and what they should have done, is they should have reached out to everybody who they hired and said, look, we're going to pay you for this, for your likeness for this game. That's what they should have done.
Whenever I saw, like, the likes of Samoa Joe and Braun Strowman and all that, and I tweeted a couple of, like, the wrestling game journalists and that, like, do these guys get paid for this? And they'd said, yeah. So it seems like a deliberate decision not to include them. What usually
happens is, right, when it depends. So as game development goes, there's only they're so close down to the wire that you can remove stuff. And I know with patching you can change it as well, but I mean, like, a lot of these guys were just kind of in it and then taken out. Like, Kyle O'Reilly's in it, and obviously he was gone a couple of weeks ago. William Regal is a massive part of it. Shane McMahon is a massive part of it, and you're like, okay, well, it's too hard to remove them at that point, But no, man, it's just the weirdest part about it is where you're like, the roster feels very barren.
Yeah,
and you're like, this is the game itself. It's a very competent game, and I'm really enjoying playing it. Like, I think as I said, it's not as good as 2K19. 2K19 is probably one of the best wrestling games ever made, right? But it's such an improvement on 2K20 that's night and day. There's a lot of more modes in it and stuff like that. But the thing about it is, it's like you have this joined playset with no action figures. And that's why I'm saying, my GM mode was the Undertaker 5 times because there was no one else.
Here's what I'd ask you, because so obviously you're going to do your own review on Nerd to Know Media, like a full game review, and I don't know, give it a score or whatever.
Yeah.
But for now, do you think it's enough? Is the improvement enough to save 2K, or are we going to see next year WWE start reaching out to the likes of EA and that to take the series forward? Like, will the next WWE game be a 2K game?
I think so. I mean, like, the problem here isn't with 2K, and I'm not saying that because they gave me a code or anything like that. I'm literally saying that the problem is they were handed a bad deal in 2K20, right? Legitimately, as far as I think they had like 4 months to make a game, 4 to 9 months, which game development's hard, guys. It's real hard, it's not easy. So it's just like, right, that's not enough time to make a game, and obviously it wasn't because the problems were so well documented, right? Like, you can watch what happened, which do a really good run of it. You can, find gameplay footage. You can even go on my Twitch, this Twitch here, if people are watching it, and you can actually see me playing it and see some of the glitches. They are monumental, With this one, the problem isn't the game. Like, yeah, some of the figures look a bit weird, but that's just the engine, right? It's more that there aren't enough wrestlers. You know, that is the problem. There aren't enough folks there on staff to make it a full experience. You know,
Yeah.
That's the problem I have with it, because you're playing through this mode, or you're trying to make a GM roster, and then you're like, oh, it would really cool if the Fiend was there, or, you know, why is this person there? It's just very jarring. It's a very weird experience to kind of go through. You're like, well, he's an AEW, but he works for, you know, it's just like, there's no consistency. It's the problem. What I'm trying to say is, in a nutshell, the problem isn't 2K. The problem is the WWE. And that's kind of what it feels like. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter who developed this game. Like, let's just say Ukes. Let's say this never happened, right? This split with Ukes, and we were just going through a normal game, right? They would still have this problem, because they can't use certain wrestlers who aren't there anymore. It's not like when EA took over Battlefront, took over the Star Wars license, and just made games that want to, well, they have mechanics in it to kind of get more money, like loot boxes and all that kind of stuff, which I don't know if you guys remember that, but that was a huge problem where, you know, in order to play as Darth Vader, you had to put 400 hours in or pay €5 or something. You know, it was crazy. But this is much more like WWE have created a situation where they haven't got an expanded roster. So if you want to play that expanded roster, your only hope is to either hope someone makes them, which, to be fair, the community creations are great, or you just wait until it gets around to it. And to be honest with you, that's one of the things that I do now a lot. I go to the community creations tab and just make my own roster of create wrestlers. But I mean, I'd have to do that with anyone, and that isn't.
It goes back to. It goes back to the that breakdown of the SmackDown and Raw rosters that Brian Alvarez did 6 months ago.
It's exactly that, dude.
And it's worse now, because there's been more releases since he did that rundown. But the numbers were mental, weren't they? And there's something like 21 male wrestlers on Raw and 25 on SmackDown, and fewer female wrestlers. And
well, that's it. Like, it is crazy, because it's just like, and even with the GM mode, it's very showing, because you're like, well, what are they valuing here? And it's like the world title. That's it.
Well, at least it's true to life.
Well, that's what I mean. It's true to life. Like, it's usually you can kind of get around it, but I mean, again, they did a really good job. It is an improvement. I would say it's a strong buy, particularly if you're gonna just do what I do and fill it with people who you want to see on the, and it will grow again, because the community is always quite good. But yeah, man, it doesn't matter who built this. It doesn't matter. Again, if Ukes were in this position, which they probably would have been, it'd be the exact same thing. So I mean, like, look, if you're looking for an updated version of WWE, where it has certain things like, you know, GM mode is there, it has I have to say the Thunderdome is like the coolest thing in the world. I'm blown away that they actually recreate that. And the thing about it is, they actually have real life people in the audience. I think it's the development team. So it's like they're cool. It's very cool. I'm like, that's brilliant. So it a lot of work went into this. The overhaul game mechanics are a bit weird to get used to, but it's a strong buy for me. But like, it does have problems, and I will go into that in more detail on the proper breakdown review and the comparison. But you know,
and as a sort of one final news segue, are the Hardy Boys in the game?
One of them is. Jeff Hardy is. Jeff Hardy is. Yeah, Matt Hardy isn't, but you can put him in it. But that's what I mean. Like, the problem here, folks. It isn't 2K. It's WWE, and whatever they're doing, that none of us seem to know what's going on, and it bleeds into the game. But look, I would say if you're a fan, if you're looking for it, I got it on the PS5. Plays great. There's no one or two little glitches again. Some of the hair looks really weird, but it will get there, you know. And obviously there's some more updates coming. There's a rake of updates. There's the NWO update. I think there's the Undertaker one's already there. But yeah, it's worth getting. It was worth the wait. But we'll just say I'll keep you updated as we're going on when that review is going to drop on the channel as well. So subscribe to Nerd to Know Media on YouTube to get that as well. So, let's switch gears here, Martin, in the half an hour, 25 minutes, half an hour we have left. AEW Revolution 2022 was a little while ago. Obviously, I was in Greece, so I had to kind of give this a bit of a miss until I got back. I'm going to kind of be the...
Yeah, I mean, well, we're still only just over a week.
Yeah, exactly. Just over a week from when it dropped. And obviously, we're not going to go into the buy-in because I didn't see the buy-in. So is there anything you want to kind of mention before we go in?
Yeah, I would just say that this was an excellent buy-in. Really good. And again, I'd be like yourself. Normally, I'll watch the buy-in if I have time. But they seem to have switched up their sort of approach to the buy-in. It's not a whole pile of kind of promo videos and the video packages that they make to hype up the bigger shows. They had 3 genuinely really good matches on the buy-in. Layla Hirsch and Chris Statlander had a slightly botchy but a really solid match. Hook came out and batted the head of QT Marshall. Everyone loves to see Hook. And then the House of Black took on Pac, Penta Oscuro, and Eric Redbeard came out to join them. And they had it was almost a shame that this was on the buy-in because they had an absolute banger of a match. But yeah, look, we're tight for time, so we won't go into it. But this is a buy-in that's actually worth watching.
Well, look, as I said, when I saw the buy-in, I was like, oh man, I wish I kind of had saw that because, I really like Pac, Penta's cool, and Eric Redbeard's just obviously that is a tag team. That is a trio that you want to see. And in the House of Black, I'm all over that, man. Like, as I said, Alistair Black is one of my favorite wrestlers, but it's cool. It's a very, very cool kind of faction warfare thing. I'm sad I didn't see it.
Yeah, and it's a great mix of guys because, you have the likes of Pac, Penta, and Buddy Matthews.
Yes.
And obviously Malachi Black, who can, do the really, really athletic stuff. Yeah, and you have Brody King and Eric Redbeard, just 2 huge hosses who just went at each other.
It. This is a traditional Mexican trio setup.
Oh,
so it doesn't shock me that was that good because that's kind of how you do it. You have your big hosses, you have your athletic kind of staple guys, and then you have your high flyers as well. It seems like I had everything. So I am probably going to go back and watch that. But Martin, we're going to have to quickly go through this because we are tight for time. So Jade Cargill versus Tony Conti for the AEW TBS Championship. Obviously, Tony Conti.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, go on.
We've jumped a wee bit ahead here, but yeah, I mean, Jade Cargill's in the middle of her, I think she's 30-0 now at this stage. So this wasn't her usual weekly squash where she just beats someone in 2 or 3 minutes. Tay Conti's a wee bit, she's a wee bit more in a prominent position than Cargill's usual opponents. So this was definitely more of a fight. A lot more given to Tay Conti than would be given to other people going up against Jade, but still only 6-7 minutes long. But a solid match.
I started it there. I started on that one because it is the shortest match of the night. It is one of those things where, like, when I was watching it, I'm like, oh, they didn't really give too much time on this. Marcus Devil May Cry via Twitter said it is crazy to me. In one match, I'm a fan of Swerve in AEW. Meanwhile, WWE ruin Pete Dunne in one night.
Oh God, yeah. If only this is the problem with so much happening in wrestling. we just don't have time to cover like all the news every week. But yeah, Pete Dunne came out as Butch. So do what you will with that.
Yeah. Anyway, so look, I want to start there because it was like Pete Dunne showing up doesn't surprise me at all because they just weren't using him at all in WWE. But yeah, look, I started there because it was one of those matches where I was shocked that it wasn't longer, but it was such a stacked card, and nothing kind of sums that up more than the opener. Chris Jericho was defeated by Eddie Kingston in about 14 minutes. Really, really, really good performance with Jericho. Jericho looks fantastic, and he probably one of the best performances in Jericho in a while. But this Eddie Kingston thing, like he's just been pulling out great performances from everybody. His match with Punk was unreal. So I think this is like a new era for Eddie Kingston.
Oh, this is his year, 2022. He has to lift the TNT, maybe even the world title this year.
And it was by submission as well, so he made Jericho actually give up, which is worth more.
Yeah, and that was very deliberate because the finish was fantastic. Jericho went for the Judas effect, and he ducked under it. It was a really fluid motion, and came back with his sort of kind of backhand finisher, and then hit him with it again. So the fact that he hit him with it twice in a row, I thought he's out. But rather than go for the pin, he put on that cool looking submission stretch.
Oh, it was very cool,
and tapped him out. So it seemed to be a real deliberate thing, that it was a submission defeat and not a pinfall.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, it put him in a great position, as you know. Not only did he, and again, like there's very few people who have a submission victory over Jericho, which is something worth mentioning. I don't know if you brought it up in commentary or not, but it's one of the things that when you look back at Jericho, like the list is very small of people who actually beat him with a submission. It's usually a pinfall or some other kind of way, but it's never. The
list's very small of people who have beat him at all. Like if you're talking 1-on-1, it's not a huge list. No. So he got his first pinfall loss. Was Orange Cassidy before or after Moxley? It must have been after. But yeah, like you're talking Mox, Orange Cassidy. You know, he's had maybe one or two other straight 1-on-1 losses since then. But like he's been with AEW from the very start, and like you could count his singles losses on one hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The next match here was a three-way. Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus defeated Red Dragon and the Bucks. Now look, I'll be honest with you, this one did very little for me. I don't know why. I was expecting it to be a little bit better than it was, Martin. But I kind of wanted the Bucks to win or Red Dragon because I'm a huge fan. But obviously just Jurassic Express came out and got the victory here.
Now, do you know what? Maybe it's the type of matches you're into.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I thought this was a work of art.
Really? Okay.
The fact that it was so well put together, from three teams who can do like every single one of those guys can do mad spots, and they had this thing build, and at no stage did it get, kind of clustered or awkward. There was no I can't think of any spots where you had people sort of standing looking up for like an inordinately long amount of time, when it becomes very obvious that they're waiting to catch someone.
It was very fluid, all right. I will have to give them that. Yeah,
flowed amazingly. The high spots were as high as you ever. I mean, it was pretty clear that the Young Bucks kind of had their fingerprints all over this one. And then I thought the ending was just that finisher of Jurassic Express is just amazing.
Look, as I said, so my question on this one though, Martin, where did they go from here? Because this was obviously for the tag belts, and they defeated the two major teams. Like Red Dragon could carry that division by themselves, as could the Bucks, who did. Where did they go? Like, who's the next?
Well, I imagine it's because Red Dragon and the Bucks are going to go do their own thing with each other for a while. So there's obviously an undercurrent of an issue there with Adam Cole and his loyalties. And then we're also seeing more and more, Kenny Omega's starting to be more active on Twitter again. And what do you call him? His manager was on the buy-in.
Right.
It was actually Kenny's music played on the buy-in, and the place went mad. And then Don Callis walked out.
Right.
But you're starting to see more Don Callis. You're starting to see Kenny's more active on Twitter. So I think the reason they have kept the titles away from the Bucks and Red Dragon is because they have a whole program planned for them with Cole, with Omega, and wherever that goes. And I think that's brilliant because that opens up, like I say, the tag titles for Jurassic Express have been brilliant. You have now the House of Black, are in there.
Yeah.
FTR.
Coming off the big win as well.
Big one. And FTR, I think, are long overdue. Another shot at those. Santana and Ortiz have split from the Inner Circle, so they're going to have their own run. Like, there's no shortage of things they can do with those titles, and I think Bucks and Red Dragon have I think they have their own path for maybe the next 6 months or so.
Well, look, the next kind of big talking point here, and we kind of talked about this on our preview like 2 weeks ago. The Face of the Revolution ladder match had a bunch of questions in it. We didn't really know how it was going to go. Wardlow walked out with the victory here. To my disappointment, to be honest with you. Again, I don't like Keith Lee in general. And
No.
I don't know why. I in NXT I was like, okay, cool, he's fine. I don't know what it is, man. Like,
I'm surprised to hear that.
I was surprised that it happened. I'll be honest with you. I was like, what's off? It's just something hasn't clicked. I enjoyed his the opening with Orange Cassidy doing his little kicks kind of thing, and then it was
Yeah.
brilliant. That was just one of the best things I've seen in a while. I love Orange Cassidy, but Keith Lee, I don't know if it's that he hasn't settled in yet. I'm getting Cody vibes off him for some reason.
Oh.
Yeah, it's weird. So I'm going to kind of keep an eye on
Well,
it.
he is like, yeah, I mean, this was, I think, his third match.
It's like
in the company, and
it's like he hasn't settled in yet, if that makes sense. He's still kind of finding what he wants to do, and it's like, do I want to keep doing my NXT thing, or do I want to try something different? And I'm like, right, we're just going to have to see if this is a thing. But it didn't click with me, and I'd be interested to know from people listening, underscore the rewind on Twitter, or even on the streams or the comment and video. Like, what did you guys think? Do you think, like, it's weird because this was always going to happen. This happened during the Monday Night Wars. It happened to a lesser extent with Impact and WWE, where when someone jumps over, either they reinvent themselves or they kind of do exactly what they were doing, just in a different company. And with Keith Lee, it's like, right, you were injured so much in WWE that you didn't really get that run, and now you're kind of doing stuff we've already seen before. I do think, even though I wasn't a huge fan of what he did in this match, I think it's a bit of a misstep to not give him the win, because it would give him something to do. And that's my concern coming out of this now. He didn't impress me enough in this match to be like, oh, I can't wait to see him again. I'm more like, Warlow was a weird choice. That's where I came out after this match. I was like, all right, cool, but what now?
well, I mean, I think the thing we had here, and we mentioned it, like you said in the preview, is that there are reasons for every one of these guys to win it,
Correct,
and reasons for every one of these guys not to win it.
Yeah.
Which actually is, in one sense, made it a really great match, because you genuinely didn't know who was going to come away with it.
No, I did not.
Wardlow, I think.
Also, sorry, 1 second. Marcus, thanks so much for following us on Twitch as well. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Marcus. Wardlow, I think there's a storyline element to this. I don't necessarily know that he's going to win the title with his match. So obviously the TNT title just changed hands there on Wednesday. So it'll be a wee bit of a hot potato to move it around. Next week.
Yeah, it'd be a bit like the TNT title is there for that kind of thing, but you want a little bit longer runs than just week to week.
Yeah, so that's why I imagine there's storyline elements here. Obviously, we're going to go into the CM Punk match next.
Yeah.
But so there's a whole issue there with MJF, with Wardlow's contract is with MJF. It's not with AEW.
Yes.
We didn't see MJF this week on Dynamite, so
because he's probably in bits.
yeah. But is he going to come out and demand the shot? If Wardlow wins the title, is he going to So I think part of the reason it went with Wardlow, I mean, apart from the fact that he's just a really good wrestler and he's over as hell.
Yeah.
I think there's sort of storyline elements to this.
Well, look, what we're going to have to do, obviously, on the stream here, we're going to keep going without taking a break, but we are going to have to probably take a break for the radio show. So when it comes to, in about 5 minutes after we talk about Punk MJF, I think we are going to have to take a break for the radio listeners, but obviously the stream is going to keep going as normal. So look, Martin, CM Punk MJF dog collar match. The first dog collar match, actually, I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen a dog collar match since Raven did them in TNA. And what was crazy about this was, even to Punk's ring gear, which was, oh man, I love that ring gear. This was a callback to indie CM Punk, Ring of Honor. Well, not even Ring of Honor, more so TNA. If you haven't seen Punk in TNA, this was it. He was channeling Raven. And this is cool, man. Like, again, we've made a lot of jokes about Walmart greeter Phil. And
we?
Oh, me. Okay, I've made a lot of jokes about Walmart greeter Phil. But he was Raven here. This is like, if Punk can become the modern day Raven, which he always kind of was, and wants to be because he loves Raven, I'm all over this. There's a very similar, like, Raven would have these matches all the time in TNA in about 2005, and they are unreal. And this match was almost bar for bar, as violent as it was, as aggressive as it was, the choke spots, all that kind of stuff. This was a TNA Raven dog collar match for the modern era. Well done to both the lads. Punk, if this is who he is, as I said, it's the same hesitancy I had with Keith Lee. I have a Keith Lee I had with Punk, where it's like, I don't really know what you're going to do. It needs to be different. And Punk now, he's sliding into this new era where he's like, right, this is who I am now. And if this is what Punk in AEW is going to be, man, we're in for a great time. A great time.
So I think with when big names come in, like you said, Keith Lee and CM Punk and the likes of that, I think there is a period where the audience is just going to be happy to see them.
Yeah.
Like, they're just going to cheer them no matter what.
Yeah.
So there probably is a period of time where you just have to let them do matches and, sort of crowd pleasing promos and stuff to let people get that out of their system, and then you can start really telling stories with them.
Yeah.
I'm with you 100% here. This was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was a level of violence and a level of viciousness that was so far removed, and like, I know you didn't like it, I loved it, but so far removed from the Jurassic Express three-way tag match, because it was so much grittier.
It's not of its time.
So much more grounded.
It's not of its time. It's a match from 15 years ago.
Even the and like, obviously glowing over Punk, a huge reason that this is so fantastic was down to MJF. His bump on the thumbtacks, for example, was astounding.
Yeah.
In fact, I think these two guys might be the best sellers on the go right now.
Oh, look, as I said, it's something we haven't seen. I don't think, most people have never seen this from CM Punk. Legitimately. Most people have never seen this, because you only saw this in the independents. You didn't even see it in Ring of Honor that much. He didn't really do it. Like, I had his feud with Raven in Ring of Honor, but that spanned across Germany, Impact, and then kind of ended up in Ring of Honor from time to time. So this is something that, it's something that people wanted. It's just weird that Punk has taken over that Raven role that he initially was MJF. And I just love that this has come full circle now, where Punk is a lot older. He is playing that older, a mentor figure, where MJF is like, well, look, I looked up to you, but I don't have to now. And that's the story that was going on here, and it's just wonderful. It really is. We are going to have to take a break here, though, for the FM listeners. Martin, what's your Twitter? How can people reach for Phoenix FM?
You can get me on Slobberknicker.
Slobberknicker, cool. And of course, you can reach us at _ the rewind, and of course the Wrestling Rewind at gmail.com for your comments, thoughts, and opinions. You have nothing else to do on a Saturday? Do you like nerd things? Now check out Nerd to Know Basis here on Phoenix 92.5 FM, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. And then head over to nerdtoknowmedia.com for all of our shows as part of the Nerd to Know Media radio network.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Guys, we're going to keep going here on the stream as well. So, Martin, look, going into that match, for me, that was match of the night, the dog collar match. And but we weren't done. We were not done by a long shot.
I think so. For me as well. Like I said, the level of violence was so grounded. It was brilliant to see that aspect of Punk. I've been getting a wee bit of stick over the past months for saying it, but every time he has a match, I think I'm proved more and more right. I think Punk is on the run of his life. And then obviously you had the storyline elements were brought into it with Wardlow coming down with the ring and not being able to find the ring. And then he is, oops, here it is. And he puts it on the apron for Punk to lift and to crack MJF. I just thought from start to finish, this whole chunk of the pay-per-view as a presentation was just amazing.
I don't know. I'm still on the wait and see with Punk. I mean, like, if this is who he's going to be, I don't take back what I said, but I'm going to be a bit less, less gleeful when this adjustment period happens. It's just more kind of like, I think he's just like, right, well, this is what I'm going to do. And the minute I saw the white shorts, I did pop a lot. The reason why, because I'm like, whoa, okay, we're going back here. We're going way back to, like, he literally looks exactly like he did back in Ring of Honor, so he's not trying. Oh yeah, and he had
the music and everything.
Yeah, he's not trying to be WWE anymore. He's gone. He's not trying. He's literally going way back and doing this kind of stuff. And again, like the dog collar match, it's a match that on paper I wasn't into. I was like, yeah, okay, I don't want to see Walmart greeter Phil in a dog collar match. But the Flock, the Gathering Raven, CM Punk, yeah, and that's who we got. So I'll be interested to see where this goes and how it kind of resets. Obviously, he wasn't on. Was he on TV last week? I know MJF wasn't. So we'll have to see when he is on TV.
The thing with the dog collar match as well is, I mean, that's just a very difficult match to pull off. Like, you got a very long chain you're attached to, and like there's 100 different ways to get tangled. I mean, that's before you're even talking about going in and out of the ropes and in and out of the ring. And so even just from a technical standpoint, I thought they did a hell of a job.
Absolutely, and it's a match, as I said, it's a match you don't really see that much. You might see a strap match from now and then, but they're always kind of lame. I thought strap matches, I've never seen a good one, I'll be honest with you. The dog collar match is one of those things that Perry Saturn used to do really good ones in WCW. But TNA really kind of figured out how to do them well, particularly in the early days. So it's cool.
I think AEW is making it one of their kind of calling cards. So there's only been two.
Yeah.
And the previous one was another brilliant match. It was Cody and Brody Lee.
Right.
They had a hell of a dog collar match. But again, they seem to pull it out when it's a real vicious, real personal feud.
Well, it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a blood feud
and
match.
I think they're... Yeah, of course. And I think the company's making it something of like a calling card of theirs.
You know what we'll do? We'll track down Raven and Punk stuff from TNA. We'll be leaving one of the Raven dog collar matches and we kind of compare and contrast, because I think that would be a fun thing to do.
That'd be class, yeah.
So yeah, we will put that on our time map, because obviously we're going back to WCW next week. But I think that would be a cool thing to do, particularly now that it's so relevant. So look, moving on here, we have Britt Baker, DMD, defeated Thunder Rosa. Again, this was a long match, but we called it this was probably going to be the case here. Obviously, title's not going anywhere. She's more over than anybody in the entire company, so you're not going to take that belt off her. Thunder Rosa did look awesome, though. So,
oh yeah,
I was very happy with this. It's great to see such a competitive match with such a high billing as well. But the weird thing about it is, even though we'd saw such a blood feud beforehand, the crowd was still into it.
Yeah, and I think that the crowd started weighing towards the end of the night. Again, it's just a long night, and they'd seen, like, by the time they got to say the main event, wow, they'd seen a lot of stuff.
You took the words out of my mouth. Honestly, I was gonna say, by the time Mox and Danielson, the next match, I was kind of done. I'm like, all right.
It even took Mox and Danielson a wee while to get the crowd, and they had another great match, but it took them a wee while to get the crowd into it.
Yeah.
For me, and this is actually kind of a compliment to the pay-per-view as a whole.
Yeah.
For me, Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa was kind of the low point of the night.
Interesting.
And I'd still give it 3.5.
Right.
At that.
Right.
I think the problem with the match was that it went too long for what it was.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't really a world championship match.
No.
What it was a setup for next week's cage match, which is Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa next week in a cage at St. Patrick's Day Slam. So it's exactly 1 year on from that vicious lights out match they had last year where they murdered each other. And I think that's where I think Thunder Rosa is going to win it then. So the issue with this was, I think when a lot of the interference started happening, people could kind of tell where this is going.
Yeah.
Britt's going to retain, and it's leading up to the sort of anniversary match.
This was this was a WCW booking where you use your pay-per-view to book your TV, which is never a good way to do things.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I mean, I like the symmetry of, it being 1 year since the St. Patrick's Day thing, but I mean, that's just nice. It's not really important. It's just kind of a cool thing you can point to. But yeah, I would agree that it's slightly backwards there.
Well, look, for me, the real main event happened next. Moxley and Daniel Bryan. And I don't mean that with any disrespect. It's just, I didn't care about Adam Cole and Hangman Page. I really just didn't care about the tag match. I thought that just could have been cut, honestly. But Moxley and Daniel Bryan, they killed each other. And it was unbelievable. It was such a great match. And then, of course, you had William Regal show up, which was even more weird. But,
I came out and slapped the two of them.
It was bizarre, and he ended up covered in blood as well for some reason, which was weird. But, man, it was brilliant. And obviously, it set up again this new kind of reset where none of them were heels. They were both faces. Went in, had a extremely physical, extremely violent match. But it wasn't like there was hate. They were just like, we're being so competitive, we're just going to go for it. And that was the story. That's the story they told. It was great. I think I would have liked Daniel Bryan to win because he needs to keep winning. He needs to win. He keeps losing. He keeps putting people over. Mox didn't need the win. But again, nobody lost here. Like, legitimately, I know wins and losses matter in AEW, but not here. And definitely not with Daniel Bryan. Like, he doesn't need it. So probably
it looks like they're going off in a tag team direction as well.
Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they're keeping Red Dragon and Bucks out of it. Maybe Mox and Danielson are gonna it's like you say, they're not exactly faces or heels. They're just two really hard guys who fight like a really vicious style.
Yeah.
So I could see them taking the titles off Jurassic Express, and I mean working over Jungle Boy. With something really, really vicious.
But look, with that though, that would be a cool way to go about it. But then again, the tag team division, you'd have to start filling it with star power, and the star power just isn't there. I mean, from tag teams there are there, but I mean, like, Mox and Bryan are your two key stars of AEW.
Yeah.
Like, there's no one in the tag team division that can... Well, Malachi Black, but he's off doing his own thing with the House of Black, so... who else would you bring in there? You'd have to relegate people. And again, it's wrong. These words are wrong to say but I mean, you'd have to relegate them away from the world title or for the TNT title to go for the tag belts. But then again, if you did that, you could actually raise that prestige up and have a new perception of what tag wrestling actually is. But they're not there yet, though. Like, for me, Red Dragon are that, you know?
I think that might be partly what they're doing, in that this is a really good way. So, Brian Danielson, you know, he can't face Hangman again for quite some time.
Yeah.
You know, they've done their 2 matches. I think this is a handy way of continuing Adam Page's run, because there's great matches he has left, and I think the match he had this week on Dynamite is kind of an example of what they're going to do with him. It's kind of a Bret Hart thing where he's going to be like a fighting champion, you know, wrestling fairly regularly.
Yeah.
And this is a really good way of taking Mox and Danielson out of that picture, because if they're still in the singles division, I mean, he can only avoid them for so long.
Well, that's true, and that does make sense. I would be interested to see now how they kind of reset the tag division, though, with some bigger names. And again, House of Black, it's kind of its own thing. That's the problem. They're just kind of doing what they want. But that would be an interesting thing to do with, you know, Christian Cage, Keith Lee, you know, those kind of guys that are just kind of floating. You know, they can be put into a cool tag team, and, you know, we could maybe see it that way. But look, I have very little to say about the next match, because for me, I just wanted it over. And the real news happened like a couple of days later when Jeff Hardy randomly showed up. So, do you have anything to say on it?
I'm surprised, because, to be honest, I was like yourself. When this match was announced, I was kind of like, oh man, that's a Dynamite match. Like,
that's what it felt like.
Why are you sticking that on the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
And then it was put on at such a strange time on the pit. Like, I mean, it kind of made sense that it was kind of like a palate cleanser between, you know, Mox and Danielson. Which,
that's what it was.
You know,
that's what it was.
Like you say,
it was
a lot of people
palate
saw
cleanser,
that as the real main event. So I suppose it was clever in that way. Whenever it started, Isaac, yourself, I wasn't really into it. We'd seen a big 6-man match earlier. I didn't need to see another one at 3:30 in the morning. And then it bloody surprised me. I thought it was brilliant. Now, it was absolute car crash nonsense. Like, it was a knockdown, drag-out brawl. But I thought it was great fun. I thought they did some awesome spots. Sammy Guevara's Spanish fly off the stage was mental. And then 62-year-old Sting came jumping off the balcony through 4 tables. Like, I mean, it genuinely, it woke me back up. Because I was flagging at that stage. Like I say, it was 3:30, maybe heading for 4 o'clock in the morning at that stage. And I was a brave bit of the way through a bottle of Jack. And I was starting to flag. But it actually, that match, as a palate cleanser, kind of gave me the little boost I needed. And because of it, I enjoyed the main event all the more.
Fair enough. Well, look, as I said, I don't really have much to say. As somebody who would be a Sting fan and a vehement Sting fan, I once I start seeing more than one table with Sting, I'm like, oh no, we've been here before. This is WCW. But no, man, look, I understand your point. It was a palate cleanser, and look, for all intents and purposes, it was a good one too. Next match, the main event. Well, they called it was the main event. It really wasn't though. Hangman
but
Page.
It's like we said last week. This bloody pay-per-view had 4 main events.
It did.
You know?
It did. And to be fair, like, this was the weakest of them, and it wasn't their fault. The match itself was quite good. I just kind of wish this match wasn't on the card. Does that make sense? Because I just wasn't into it by the time I was watching it, because I'd already. This problem happened at WrestleMania, which is why I love that they have it over 2 nights now, where you can actually this would have been the main event, but
on a separate night.
Separate night.
Yeah,
and then John Moxley and Daniel Bryan would have been the main event on that night. So taking it that way, maybe watching this show in 2 halves would have been a good way to do it, but it was what it was. And for me, the pop was already gone. And I think the crowd was kind of the same. The crowd weren't, it wasn't that they were not into it, but they were just kind of like, okay. Hangman Adam Page defeated Adam Cole by pinfall to retain the AEW World Championship. So look, man, I really like Adam Cole. But Hangman Page, while I agree with you, he has some good matches left in him. I think his title run has been a bit meh.
God, I'm the opposite. I think it's getting better and better. So for me, the thing with Hangman is
it's weird. Look, I just don't buy him as a champion. I don't know why that is, because when he was chasing the belt, you were like, man, he's really hungry. But I don't know. It's just something about him. I just don't buy him as a champion.
See, I see him a lot like Bret Hart. So you had all these other matches during the night that were all very visceral and personal. Jericho, Kingston, that was personal.
Yeah.
MJF, Punk, Mox, Danielson. These were all real personal fights that had big storylines behind them. This was a wrestling match between the world champion and the number one contender.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. Yeah.
I mean, on paper, it had every right to be the main event, but it didn't have the story or the build of the other ones.
Yeah, it was the most pure wrestling match of the whole night as well.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, without Mox and Danielson, to be fair, Mox and Danielson was a pure wrestling match as well, but they wrestled a completely different style to both the lads in the ring at that point.
Completely different, yeah. But with this one, what I found was the same thing with Adam Page, is that, ever since, maybe not ever since he got the title, ever since the Danielson run ended, his championship, the run hasn't been great, but then the bell rings and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Like his match with Lance Archer, again, just kind of had a 2-week build, came up out of nowhere, and it was like, I like both these guys. I'd say it's going to be a good match. I'm not hugely into it. And then the bell rings.
And then it's a totally different story.
And this is the exact same here. It was very simple, straightforward. The world champion versus the number one contender. It didn't have the visceral nature of the other matches. It didn't have the crowd sort of chomping at the bit like the other matches. But then the bell rang and they put on a hell of a show.
All right. Well, look, as I said, I think that's a better analysis of it, but maybe less is more with this kind of stuff. And I think going forward, you don't need... For me, I'm always going to enjoy the stories a little bit more than the pure wrestling, because it can feel kind of hollow. What they should have done, again, probably have this earlier on in the night. And you can't really have your cake and eat it too here with AEW. I understand what AEW are trying to do, but this would have been better, midway through, and then having Danny O'Brien and Mox at the end.
Yeah, or even I actually loved that that Jericho and Kingston opened the show, because I thought it was brilliant the way Kingston just came storming down. And I think the bell hadn't even rung and he threw Jericho on his head. Yeah,
that was good. That was really good.
But this would have been a really good open. I think your world title either has to open or close the show.
Yeah, and look, the thing about it is, it's like WWE kind of do that now, where they have the world title open the shows, and I don't really mind that so much. It's just, I think with wrestling, the story really is more important than the match, than the sport, right? If that makes sense. Where the sport is there, and people are going to watch it for that. But what makes a good wrestling match, a good main event, is the story and the competitive nature of it too. And it just wasn't there. It was just missing something else. And I think because they had such a great build up to it, it was just kind of like, oh. Instead of being like, wow, that was amazing, it was like, oh, and just put yourself in that mindset. If you had have seen William Regal show up at the end, like if that had have how the show went off the air, you would have been like, whoa, William, that's incredible. Instead of, you're just like, oh.
The show goes off the air with Regal, Mox, and Danielson all in the ring. Yeah. Pissing blood and shaking hands with each other. That's a hell of an
ending. And for me, that's a much more pay-per-view end than, oh, You know,
I agree
So-
with you. Yeah.
But look, I'd give the show a solid watch. It's a solid B for me. I think what let it down was there was too much quality here. That's and it's not a good complaint to have. It's not a bad complaint to have. It's a good one. I think there's too much. And you know, I would have broken it up a little bit. But look, it is again. It's like when you watch 2001: A Space Odyssey. You watch that in 2 parts because that's a hard movie to watch. You watch it in 2 parts because there's too much good. So I would say it's the same kind of thing here. If you haven't seen it, you know, find a stream. It's still available on the Fight app. A solid B for me. Martin, what are your final thoughts on this? What's your grade rating and anything else before we get out here?
I would give that an A. I
Okay.
thought it was. I think the fact that I was still wide awake, buzzing at 4 a.m. You know, is an indication of how well paced it was. I think yes, there was a lot. I mean, there's 12 matches on the card, including the pre-show.
Yes,
That is a lot.
it is.
But when you consider that this happens 4 times a year, you know, that's it. It's the big pay-per-views. And I think when they come on, they have to be events.
Yeah.
The length of them doesn't particularly bother me as long as they're paced well. And I thought what we had here, given the selection of matches, was a terrific breakdown of the kind of buffet style of wrestling that AEW does. You know, you have your hardcore, you have your technical, you have your high flying, you have your strong style, you have your, you know, your really visceral storylines, and then you have your kind of pure wrestling matches. And I love this pay-per-view. I think it might be my favorite AEW pay-per-view.
Okay. That's high praise, man. That's high praise. And you're not going to get better than that. Martin is the biggest AEW fan that I know, so that's saying an awful lot.
But yeah, it's definitely, if it's not the top one, it's in the top 3. I thought this was fantastic.
Very cool. Again, guys, if this is your first stream, this is your first time checking us out, thanks so much for sticking with us. Again, Marcus, thanks so much for your comments and also subscribing to the channel. Please do subscribe, like the video, spread words about the podcast, and of course the Twitch stream and the YouTube channel as well. We appreciate it. _the rewind on Twitter. DWrestlingRewind.com is where you can find us as well. And of course, my Twitter is @DaraWV. Martin's Twitter is Slobberknicker. And we'll be back next week. We'll probably be back this Friday because we usually do tape on a Friday. And yeah, we'll be back every single week, getting back to WCW and finishing off that timeline as well. Again, if there's anything you do want us to talk about, you can either tweet us, leave a comment in the video, or email us, thewrestlingrewind@gmail.com. So for everybody here on the show, and of course in Nerd to Know Media, we'll see you next week here on The Wrestling Rewind. Bye, guys.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.